Let's take you to the story now. Gun-Free SA is calling for the Western Cape Specialised Firearms Unit to be reinstated. It comes after around 130 people were killed in the province in the last week of September alone. Most were killed in robberies and gang violence at the end of a barrel of a gun. Let's discuss this now with Gun-Free SA Director Adele Kirsten. Adele, thank you very much for your time as usual. So clearly in the Western Cape, we aren't able, at least as police, the SAPS in that area is not really able to nip this issue in the bud when it comes to gangsterism there and killings from a gun.
Good afternoon, Masejo. Gun-Free South Africa's call for the establishment of the Specialist Firearms Unit is a call for across the country. We know that provinces like the Western Cape and KZN in particular have experienced a lot of these mass shootings, assassinations in the last, in fact, couple of years, which is what we're seeing as a new phenomenon. But this call for the establishment of the dedicated specialist firearms units is not new. We've asked for that to be established over the last months. Even the major policing unions like POPCRU and SAPU have also called for the establishment of these units. And there was a cabinet memo a couple of months ago confirming that this needed to happen, and yet we've seen no evidence of that. The reason it's important to have these units is because it's absolutely essential to recover guns that are used in crime. We have to stop the circulation of these guns because they just continue to go into criminal hands and they continue to kill and maim. So it has to be a priority for SAPS to use intelligence-driven gathering information and expertise to recover these guns and get them off our streets.
And the Specialist Firearms Unit in the Western Cape, were things slightly better when they were still operating?
Well, it was, there were units nationally established across the country. And this was, around about the late 90s, early 2000. We know that when the Firearms Control Act was introduced in 2000, this, together with things like firearms amnesties, intelligence-driven operations, so a sort of a holistic approach to dealing with reducing the circulation of firearms, resulted in a significant reduction in gun deaths. So they existed across the country and they were effective. We have lost that specialty, and it needs to, as an urgent, as a priority. This has to be SAPS's, one of SAPS's key priorities, is to remove weapons from circulation so that we reduce the availability of guns. And we know, evidence shows that reducing gun availability will reduce gun deaths.
Can you tell us why this issue particularly is happening in the Western Cape? Besides what we know about the Cape Flats, etc., why is it in the Western Cape where you can find that 130 people are killed in 1 week and most of those deaths are because of a gun?
It's a complex picture, and there are a number of factors that contribute to that. The one is that the Western Cape has been seen as a province in which there's a demand for guns, partly because of the phenomenon of gangsterism across mainly Cape Flats communities. So there's a ready market for guns, and criminal and organized networks have pushed these guns into the hands of criminals in the Western Cape. We know that there is significant leakage, loss and theft from both civilians, from private security industry, and also loss and theft from police officers. So there are a number of factors which contribute to the movement of weapons, particularly into the Western Cape. We, of course, know of the case of Prinsloo, where he stole over 2,000 guns, an ex-cop, and he sold those weapons on or to criminals in the Western Cape. Only 1,000 of those guns were recovered. So we must assume that those weapons are continuing to circulate.
To circulate, yeah. And what about, what the minister said he's going to do to try and address this issue in the Western Cape, saying he's going to saturate particularly Gugulethu and the Cape Flats, which were the most problematic parts of the Western Cape. He's going to saturate those areas with police from every single combat unit of the SAPS. Is that enough as well?
Masejo, I think the key issue here is that it needs to be intelligence driven, which means that your officers must have experience in organized crime and crime intelligence. They also have to be absolutely above reproach. We know that there's corruption within the police service. So these officers can't have any link to being involved in corrupt practices or criminal networks. So there needs to be some kind of vetting process. I think taking a kind of holistic, coordinated approach, including the visibility of police, is an important strategy to address this. But it has to be intelligence-driven. It can't just be that we put more people on the street. That's not going to stop the circulation of guns. It's about finding out the networks, who's benefiting from this, where are these weapons coming from, how they're moving. That's what's critical. And that requires really specialist skills.
Were we ever given reasons why the Specialist Firearms Unit were suspended?
My recollection, and I might be under correction here, is that it was towards the end of 2000, like around about 2009 and 10, I'm not sure, but it was all the specialist units were shut down, things like the child and family units. And it was this idea of kind of, centralizing things and taking away some of these units. That was a mistake. And I think we've seen that some of these units are being re-established. So the firearms units were, I guess, a casualty of that process. This requires resources, but SAPS has the resources. They have a big budget. And if we're serious about reducing overall crime in the country, not just gun-related crime, focusing on the gun, because it's a weapon of choice for criminals. It causes the most harm. And removing guns from the equation will give us the biggest single impact in reducing crime overall.
And of course, these units were very essential in at least even public protection. All right. It looks like we've lost... Are you still there, Adele?
Oh, yes. I think there was a blip.
Yes, so I was saying that these units are very essential in the protection of the public and, backup operations, right, of gangs, for instance. So that was a very essential unit to, suspend. It clearly didn't work to suspend.
It was a mistake. To suspend them. And maybe part of it could have been that we saw a very dramatic reduction in gun violence in sort of 10, 12 years after the introduction of the new gun law. In round about 2009, 2010, our gun deaths reduced to 18 a day. We are back up to 31 people. 31 people are shot and killed every single day in this country. It has to be a priority for SAPS to address this. And so we would really urge the Minister of Police to put these specialist firearms units in place.
Thank you so much, Adele, for speaking to me this afternoon. Gun Free South Africa Director, Adele Kirsten. Just commenting on the fact that just 2 days ago, we found out from Police Minister General Bheki that in the Western Cape, 130 people were killed in the last week of September alone. That's quite a scary number if you think about already the fact that our crime statistics in South Africa are alarmingly high.